You were not born in a palace, not in some clean Soviet apartment with bookshelves and piano lessons. You were born in a peeling maternity ward in Russia in the early 1990s, when the country had already fallen apart, but nobody had bothered to clean up the ruins. The wallpaper in the corridor was yellow from old smoke. The radiators clanged like dying machines. Your mother screamed on a metal bed while the nurse told her to be quiet because there were other women in labor. And nobody was special anymore. The Soviet Union was dead. The adults still said the word collapse like they were talking about a roof that had crushed everyone underneath. Your father had once believed in normal life, factory job, steady pay, pride. Then the factory stopped paying wages on time. Then it paid in shoes, canned fish, or promises. Then it stopped pretending. He learned quickly that in the new Russia, honest work was slower than hunger. You grow up in a concrete apartment block on the edge of an industrial town. Gray walls, broken elevator, the stairwell smells of piss, wet dog, cheap cigarettes, and boiled cabbage. In winter, the windows freeze on the inside. In summer, the whole building sweats. The pipes knock all night like someone trapped inside them. As a baby, you drink thin formula when there is formula, watered milk when there is not. Your mother cuts bread into tiny pieces so it seems like more. Your grandmother keeps jars of pickles in the cellar like holy relics. Sugar disappears, sausage becomes a rumor. Bananas are exotic treasure. Oranges come once a year if someone has connections. By the time you are 5, you already understand 3 things. First, money can vanish. Second, adults lie when they say everything will be fine. Third, if you want anything good, you stand in line before sunrise and hope it hasn't run out. Your childhood soundtrack is television noise from a flickering box in the corner. Commercials scream about a new life, new banks, new businessmen, new freedom. Your mother laughs at the screen without smiling. Freedom for whom, she asks, not for people counting coins for bread. Outside, boys play between garages and rusted swings. You learn fast. Fight first if you have to. Never show new shoes. Never tell anyone what your father brings home. Never cry in front of older kids. If they take your lunch, you either take it back or lose it forever. At 7, you see your first corpse, not in a war, not in a dramatic scene. Just a man under a newspaper near the tram stop, one shoe missing, police smoking nearby like they've seen worse before breakfast. People walk around him. One woman adjusts her shopping bag and keeps moving. That's your first lesson in the 90s. Tragedy becomes furniture if it stays long enough. School begins, the building's cracked, the teachers are tired, and everybody acts like discipline still means something because the alternative is admitting the whole system is held together by tape and old habits. You sit in class with your winter coat on because the heating barely works. Your teacher talks about Pushkin, the glory of Russia, the future. Then she quietly asks parents to bring chalk, paper, maybe even soap because the school has none. You trade everything, stickers, marbles, imported gum wrappers. Later, cigarettes. Later, answers on tests. Later, pieces of yourself. At home, your father changes. First, it is just silence, then cheap vodka in tea glasses, then rage, not cinematic rage, petty rage. Humiliating rage. He slams doors, kicks chairs, curses politicians, oligarchs, Jews, Americans, neighbors, life himself. He does not hit you often, which is supposed to count as mercy. He hits the wall beside your head instead. The wall is easier to explain. Your mother starts selling things. First old clothes at the market, then a crystal vase from her wedding, then books, then her gold earrings. You learn the true meaning of family economics. Everything beautiful is temporary, everything useful gets sold, and everything sentimental becomes kindling when winter bites hard enough. At 10, you go with her to the open-air market, frozen mud under your boots, men in leather jackets, women wrapped in layers, tables made of doors laid over crates, Chinese thermoses, Turkish sweaters, fake Adidas, cheap sausage, stolen car radios, pirated cassettes. Everything for sale, everyone watching everyone. You learn faces. The speculator with sharp teeth. The ex-engineer selling bolts from a sack. The widow trading homemade pickles for detergent. The local thug collecting payment from stall owners with a smile more dangerous than a knife. The police officer who pretends not to see because he gets his cut too. This is the new order, not law. Arrangement. At 12, you start carrying bags for traders after school, cash in hand. Small money, but real. Your back hurts. Your fingers go numb in winter. You don't care. Real money means bread, batteries, maybe sausage, maybe a chocolate bar if you lie and say the customer paid less. Your first private crime? Tiny, almost innocent. It still makes your heart pound. Then comes 1998. Adults say default, devaluation, crisis. The words sound technical, almost polite. The reality is your mother crying at the kitchen table because the money she saved is now paper for lighting the stove. Your father laughs when he hears the news, loud and ugly, because he says only fools trusted banks. Then he drinks for 3 days. You are 14, and overnight everyone gets meaner. Shops change prices twice a day. Teachers stop pretending salaries are coming. Neighbors whisper about who got robbed. A classmate's older brother is found in a forest with 2 bullets in him because he got involved in business. In the 90s, business means anything from selling jeans to stealing trucks to moving heroin. The line is blurry until someone dies. Teenage life is not romance. It is survival wearing imitation sneakers. You hang around garages with boys who smell like gasoline and smoke. One has a butterfly knife. One has a cousin in prison. One already works as muscle for a local car service that strips stolen vehicles. You all talk big because being afraid out loud is social suicide. At 15, you get your first beating worth remembering. 3 older boys behind the school because you looked too long, talked too sharp, stood too straight. Who knows? The reason doesn't matter. In that decade, violence often arrives without motive because motive costs time. A boot in the ribs, snow in your mouth, copper taste of blood. When you drag yourself home, your mother says you fell. You say yes. Both of you know that's a lie. Both of you accept it because truth creates work. By 16, you split into 2 people. One still goes to school, reads enough to pass, maybe even dreams of university. The other knows where to buy cigarettes singly, where stolen electronics get sold, which kiosk clerk can be scared, and how to run when sirens start. You do courier work for a man named Oleg. He never says what exactly he does, which means everyone knows. You carry envelopes, small boxes. Sometimes cash, sometimes spare car parts that are definitely too new to be legal. He pays on time. That already makes him more reliable than the state. The first time you see him punish someone, it is fast. A slap, a broken tooth, a calm voice. The victim apologizes before the second hit lands. You understand something important then. In the vacuum left by institutions, the man who can deliver consequences becomes king of a very small kingdom. At 17, you fall in love. Of course you do. Misery does not cancel biology. Her name is Anya. She has cheap black eyeliner and a laugh that sounds almost foreign, like she belongs to a better country. You walk her home past garages, naked trees. You hold hands in the cold. You kiss in stairwells while someone upstairs argues over money. For a few months, you think maybe your life will become normal through sheer force of wanting. Then her family leaves for Moscow. Not because they are rich, because your town is dying faster than the capital. She promises to write. She writes twice, then not again. Welcome to adulthood in Russia. People don't always betray you dramatically. Sometimes they just move toward oxygen. You finish school barely. University is possible in theory, expensive in practice, pointless according to your father, sacred according to your mother. You enter a technical institute because it is cheap and close. The classrooms are full of broken equipment from another century. Professors lecture like they are speaking to ghosts. Half the students are there to avoid the army. The other half are there because nobody knows what else to do. The army hangs over every male life like weather. Chechnya is on the television. Burned vehicles, young soldiers with old eyes. Mothers at train stations, rumors of Dadov's China, beatings, extortion, coffins. Boys become experts in medical exemptions overnight. Flat feet, ulcers, nerves, anything. Patriotism's easy on TV, less easy when someone you know comes back missing fingers. You bribe your way out through a chain of envelopes your mother can't afford and your father resents paying. He calls you weak. Then later, drunk, he says he's glad. In your country, love often arrives disguised as insult. You are 20 when the 2000s begin and the air changes. Not clean, not kind, just different. There is more order now, more money in some pockets, more confidence on television, less chaos in the streets, more structure in the corruption. The wild wolves put on suits. The gangsters become businessmen, officials, deputies, respectable men with security and opinions. Your town gets a shopping center where an old factory warehouse used to be. Bright lights, imported goods, plastic abundance. People walk there just to feel modern. You do too. You stand in front of shelves full of things your childhood could not imagine and realize this is how victory looks in peacetime. Not justice, not dignity. Just yogurt in 10 flavors. You work where you can. Construction, phone sales, security at a nightclub where the rich sons of local officials spend more in one evening than your family used to live on for a month. You stand in black clothes near the entrance and watch human theater. Drunk businessmen with gold chains and dead eyes. Girls pretending to be impressed, police officers drinking for free. Small-time crooks trying to act like aristocrats. The music is loud enough to blur shame. One night there is a knife fight in the parking lot over an insult, a girl, or maybe a debt. Again, the reason doesn't matter. You kneel next to a bleeding man while someone screams for an ambulance. The blood is black under yellow lamps. He grabs your sleeve and says, "Don't let me die like a dog." He dies before the ambulance arrives. You never even learn his surname. At 24, your father finally collapses. Not metaphorically, literally. Stroke at the kitchen table, face crooked, tea spilling across newspaper. The ambulance comes late. The hospital corridor smells exactly like the maternity ward where your life began. Bleach, despair, metal. He survives, but only halfway. One arm weak, speech broken, pride annihilated. Now the man who terrified the apartment can't button his own shirt. Your mother, ages 10 years in one, you become the provider because somebody has to. This is another Russian inheritance. No matter what your parents did to you, history hands them back when they become helpless. You marry at 26, not Anya. A woman named Lena, practical and warm, with tired eyes and strong hands. She works in a pharmacy. She does not ask you to become poetic, rich, or healed, only reliable. In your world, that's almost romantic. You have a son, then a daughter. The first time you hold your son, you make a silent promise so primitive. It feels older than language. He'll not be afraid of me. You fail sometimes, not with fists. Never that. But with silence, sharpness, exhaustion, the hard edge that life welded into you before you had a choice. Trauma rarely repeats itself exactly. It adapts, it modernizes. Years pass and bills, work, traffic, repairs, funerals, school meetings, bad plumbing, New Year tables, and winter after winter after winter. You discover the adult secret your parents never explained because they were too busy surviving it. Life is not one catastrophe. It is accumulation, 1,000 small pressures, tiny humiliations, repeated endurance. The country grows stronger on television and stranger in reality. Cities shine, villages rot. Oil money builds towers. Old women still count coins. Your salary rises, then prices rise faster. Every improvement feels temporary, rented from fate. You become good at your job and logistics because you understand the post-Soviet religion better than any textbook graduate. Systems fail, people lie, paperwork mutates, roads betray, and everything still has to arrive somehow. You can solve problems, not elegantly, effectively. This makes you valuable. At 35, you buy your first used foreign car. Nothing luxurious. Just a modest machine that starts in winter more often than not. You sit behind the wheel in the yard for 10 minutes after parking, hands on the steering wheel, not moving. For a child of the 90s, ownership is never just ownership. It is proof that chaos did not eat you completely. Then your mother dies of cancer. Quietly, bitterly, as if she had no energy left even for drama. In her wardrobe, you find old ration coupons, sewing supplies, a tiny stack of hidden cash, and your school drawings folded like state documents. All those years she saved pieces of you while the rest of life was busy taking. At the funeral, the priest speaks of eternity. You think of queues, market stalls, thin soup, and her cracked hands washing the same plastic bags to reuse them. Eternity has strange building materials. Your father outlives her by 2 years, which feels rude. After her death, he speaks less than ever. Once, near the end, he looks. By 40, you realize your entire age group carries the same invisible archive. We know how to store buckwheat for bad times. We hate wasting food. We distrust banks, promises, and cheerful politicians. We remember adults selling family heirlooms by weight. We remember gunfire and news reports and jokes at funerals. We know how quickly normal life can become barter. That knowledge never leaves. Your son grows up online. Your daughter speaks English better than you ever did at her age. They roll their eyes at your warning. Save money. Don't trust appearances. Learn a real skill. Have a backup plan. They think you are paranoid, dramatic, old-fashioned. Good. Let them. If they never understand your reflexes, maybe that means you succeeded, and yet the old country never truly releases you. A police car behind you still tightens your chest. A late salary still feels like prelude to disaster. A man in a leather jacket with a certain smile still reminds you of market extortionists from 1996. Cheap vodka on someone's breath can transport you 20 years in 1 second. You built a stable life, yes, but the foundations are poured over rubble, and rubble shifts. Then middle age arrives the way it always does, not with revelation, but with back pain and memory. You attend reunions. Some classmates are dead. Drugs, prison, alcohol, knife fights. One disappeared into Moscow and became rich enough to forget everyone. One teaches history for miserable pay. One sells auto parts. One sits in government. One still owes you money from 2003. You look at the survivors and understand the real miracle of your generation was not greatness. It was durability. You were raised in collapse, educated in improvisation, and matured in a country rewriting itself every 5 years. You learned to read danger in tone of voice, to recognize scarcity before shelves emptied, to laugh when things got ugly because panic is useless and dignity is expensive. By 50, your hair is thinner, your patience shorter, your apartment better, your refrigerator fuller, and your sleep no cleaner than before. Sometimes at night you stand on the balcony and look at the district, the same concrete blocks, some repainted, some not. Satellite dishes now. Parked cars everywhere. LED lights where darkness used to pool. Kids with phones brighter than your whole childhood. You think about what your life actually was, not heroic, not cinematic. No glorious rise from poverty to power. No final speech, no elegant moral. You were not a gangster, not an oligarch, not a dissident, not a saint. You were one of millions, a Russian child of the 90s, raised between ruins and kiosks, between Soviet habits and capitalist predators, between the old fear and the new greed. You learned early that the state was far away, money was unstable, tenderness was fragile, and survival was practical. You watched adults trade dignity for groceries, watched criminals become respectable, watched idealists become cynics, watched your parents shrink under history they did not choose. And still you lived, you worked, you loved imperfectly, you buried the old, you raised the young, you became exactly what that decade produces best, a person who can continue. One day you will die quietly, most likely not in some dramatic national tragedy, not under flags, not under headlines. Maybe in a hospital with old linoleum and overworked nurses. Maybe at home with your children speaking softly in the next room. Your life will not be taught in schools. No documentary voice will call you legendary. But in your bones will remain the full map of an era. The queue at dawn, the market and freezing wind, the default, the stairwell stink, the first foreign chocolate bar, the fear of the draft, the nightclub blood, the unpaid wages, your mother's hidden savings, your father's unfinished apology, your son sleeping safely in a room warmer than yours ever was. That is your monument, not marble, memory, not triumph, endurance. If you were born Russian in the 90s, this is your whole life. Not a legend, not a fairy tale, but a long negotiation with chaos. And if you made it to the other side with something human still alive inside you, that was never small. That was the victory. Thanks for watching, my friend. Write in the comments what story you'd like to hear next.